I have remained silent since the news broke that Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba was arrested and returned to face justice at home. I did not rush to speak because leadership is not measured by speed. It is measured by restraint, by clarity, and by responsibility in moments when the whole nation is watching. Let me speak plainly. When Damiba was arrested in Lomé and transferred back under a legal process, many people immediately turned it into a story of emotion, rivalry, or revenge. That is not what this is. A state cannot be built on rumor, and a revolution cannot be protected by noise. If we claim we are restoring dignity to Burkina Faso, then accountability must be handled through institutions, not through crowds, not through whispers, not through personal hatred. I'm not here to celebrate any man's fall. I'm here to protect the idea that no one is above the Republic. The same uniform that gives authority also demands discipline. The same power that commands must answer to the law. If our people are asking questions now, it is because this moment is bigger than one name. It forces us to look at what transitions really mean, what loyalty really costs, and what happens when ambition replaces duty. This is not a time for panic. This is a time for focus. Burkina Faso is not moving in circles anymore. We are moving forward, and forward movement requires one thing above all: truth enforced with calm and order. I want to begin by removing one illusion. This moment is not about the past returning, it is about the present being clarified. When Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba was arrested, many assumed this was a political signal meant to intimidate or a reaction meant to settle old scores. That interpretation is convenient, but it is wrong. Burkina Faso cannot afford convenient explanations anymore. We have paid too much for them. What is happening now is the natural consequence of a country deciding that power must finally answer to structure. For decades, transitions in our nation were treated as pauses, not responsibilities. Authority changed hands, but accountability was postponed. Files were ignored. Questions were delayed. The cost of that habit was instability. I did not come to lead Burkina Faso to continue that cycle. When a nation chooses seriousness, it must accept discomfort. Accountability is uncomfortable. It disrupts myths. It disappoints those who believed that time alone erases responsibility. It does not. Time only magnifies what was left unresolved. This is why calm matters. Noise weakens institutions. Discipline strengthens them. We are not reacting to pressure. We are responding to reality. Our people deserve a state where rules are applied without fear and without favoritism. Not selectively, not emotionally, not symbolically. Some are watching closely, waiting to see if this moment will fracture us. Others are hoping it will distract us. It will do neither. Burkina Faso is learning to separate emotion from governance. That is how nations mature. This is not a turning backward. It is a straightening of the path. If you are looking for drama, you will be disappointed. If you are looking for direction, this is what it looks like. I want to explain why I chose silence before speaking. Not absence, silence. In moments like this, words travel faster than truth. A single sentence, taken out of context, can create fear where none exists, or expectation where discipline is required. I refuse to add to that confusion. Leadership is not performance, it is timing. Silence allowed institutions to work. Silence allowed procedures to unfold without interference. Silence allowed emotions to cool, so judgment could remain clear. There are those who believe a leader must always speak immediately, as if authority fades when it is not constantly displayed. I believe the opposite. When a state is strong, it does not panic. It does not rush to reassure. It allows its systems to do what they were designed to do. This is where many misunderstand the difference between command and control. Command is loud, control is quiet. Command demands attention. Control earns confidence. Burkina Faso no longer needs constant announcements to prove stability. Stability is shown through continuity. I watched carefully how people reacted during those first hours. Some expected statements, some expected force, some expected chaos. What they encountered instead was order. That was intentional. A country that speaks too quickly reveals uncertainty. A country that pauses shows discipline. I did not delay because I was hesitant. I delayed because I was precise. There is a difference. Precision protects credibility. It protects institutions. It protects the people from speculation disguised as concern. Now that procedures are in motion, now that facts are clearer than rumors, now that emotion has lost its grip, I can speak without feeding distraction. This is how authority is exercised without becoming fragile. There is a dangerous habit in our political culture that I want to confront directly. Too often, accountability is described as revenge. Too often, justice is portrayed as personal. This distortion has protected irresponsibility for generations. What is happening now is not revenge. Revenge is emotional. It is rushed. It is selective. Accountability is the opposite. It is slow, structured, and bound by rules that apply to everyone, including those who once held power. If a state only enforces the law against the weak, then it is not a state, it is a performance. A serious nation must be willing to examine itself honestly, even when that examination is uncomfortable. Some people ask, why now? The answer is simple. Because now we have chosen coherence. Because now we have chosen to stop pretending that stability can exist without responsibility. Because postponing accountability does not create peace, it creates debt. And that debt always returns with interest. I am fully aware that moments like this are used by some to spread fear. They warn of instability, they predict division, they hope uncertainty will weaken resolve. That tactic is old. It only works when a country doubts itself. Burkina Faso no longer doubts itself. Justice does not weaken a nation. Impunity does. When people see that power answers to law, trust begins to grow, slowly, quietly, but genuinely. I will not interfere with judicial processes. I will not comment on evidence. I will not turn governance into theater. That restraint is not avoidance. It is respect for the separation that keeps a state from collapsing into personal rule. This is how we break with the past without destroying ourselves in the process. One of the hardest lessons any nation must learn is that power alone does not create order. Power can take control, but responsibility is what sustains direction. When those two are confused, instability becomes inevitable. In our history, authority was often treated as a shield rather than a duty. Once power was obtained, it was protected at all costs, even if the cost was trust, cohesion, or truth. That mindset weakened institutions and personalized governance. The result was repetition, different faces, same outcomes. I refuse to govern that way. Responsibility requires limits. It requires accepting that no position, no uniform, no title places anyone above scrutiny. The moment leaders believe they are untouchable, the state begins to erode from within, not immediately, quietly, invisibly, until the damage becomes unavoidable. This is why discipline matters more than declarations. It is easy to speak about reform. It is harder to submit oneself to structure. What our people are witnessing now is not force. It is framework, not impulse, process. Some expected a display of strength. They misunderstand strength. True strength does not need spectacle. It needs consistency. It needs rules applied evenly. It needs leaders who understand that authority borrowed from the people must always be returned through service. I am not interested in ruling through fear. Fear creates obedience, not stability. I am interested in building credibility. Credibility creates endurance. This moment tests whether Burkina Faso can finally separate leadership from personal power. I believe we can. And more importantly, I believe we must. It is important to say this clearly. This moment is not about one individual. It is about a system deciding how it will function from this point forward. If we reduce everything to personalities, we miss the lesson entirely. Names change, positions rotate, but the consequences of weak structures remain. I am not interested in managing names. I am focused on correcting patterns. For too long, our politics revolved around individuals instead of institutions. Loyalty was personal, authority was improvised, decisions depended on proximity to power rather than responsibility to the nation. That model failed us repeatedly, even when intentions were declared noble. What we are doing now is different. The arrest of a former leader does not signal instability, it signals normalization. In a serious state, past authority does not erase present accountability. The law does not pause out of respect for history. It moves forward out of respect for the future. Some people are uncomfortable because this breaks an unspoken rule. The rule that once someone leaves power, they disappear from scrutiny. That rule was never written, but it was practiced. And it cost us credibility. I do not want a Burkina Faso where leadership is temporary but immunity is permanent. That is not reform, that is rotation. By insisting on structure over sentiment, we are sending a message to everyone currently in office and everyone who will come after us. Authority is conditional, trust must be maintained, responsibility does not expire. This is how we stop repeating ourselves. I know that many within our security forces are watching this moment closely. Soldiers, officers, and young recruits are asking themselves what this means for loyalty, for duty, and for their future. That question deserves an honest answer. Loyalty is not silence. Loyalty is not blind obedience. Loyalty is commitment to the republic above individuals. When accountability reaches those who once held command, it is not a threat to the armed forces. It is a protection of their honor. A military that is shielded from responsibility becomes vulnerable to manipulation. A military that respects structure becomes resilient. I want every soldier to understand this. Discipline is not weakness. It is strength refined. It ensures that orders are lawful, missions are clear, and authority is respected because it is legitimate, not because it is feared. There were times in our past when confusion between personal allegiance and national duty caused fractures. Those fractures weakened operations and damaged trust with the people we are sworn to protect. We cannot afford that again. This moment clarifies expectations. Service is to the nation, not to personalities. Command is temporary. Responsibility is permanent. The uniform represents sacrifice, not privilege. I have no interest in politicizing the armed forces. On the contrary, I am committed to professionalizing them. A professional force operates within clear boundaries, respects civilian authority, and understands that its strength comes from unity, not favoritism. If this signal is understood, then our security institutions will emerge stronger, more respected, and more trusted than before. I am also aware that this moment is being observed far beyond our borders. Some foreign commentators are quick to interpret every internal decision through the lens of external influence. Let me be clear. This process is not driven by pressure from outside Burkina Faso. For a long time, decisions in our region were filtered through expectations set elsewhere. Approval mattered more than coherence. Reaction mattered more than principle. That era weakened states and encouraged dependency disguised as partnership. What is happening now follows no external script. Our judicial process is guided by our laws, our institutions, and our responsibility to our people. No embassy, no organization, no foreign capital dictates how Burkina Faso handles accountability. Those who assume otherwise misunderstand the direction we have chosen. I do not confuse cooperation with submission. Burkina Faso will continue to engage with partners who respect our sovereignty and our priorities. But internal discipline is not negotiable. It cannot be outsourced. It cannot be postponed to avoid discomfort abroad. Some will try to frame this moment as instability to justify interference. Others will use it to question legitimacy. That is expected. When a country stops behaving predictably, those who benefited from predictability become uneasy. We are not reacting to that unease. Our responsibility is inward, to restore confidence among our people, to demonstrate that order comes from structure, not dependency, to show that reform is not a slogan repeated for donors, but a practice enforced at home. Burkina Faso is learning to stand upright, and when a nation stands upright, it no longer needs permission to act. This moment does not only test institutions, it also tests the people. I know many citizens are tired of transitions, tired of promises, tired of explanations that never become results. That fatigue is real and it is justified. But fatigue must not turn into indifference. Indifference is how repetition survives. What I ask of the people now is not blind trust. It is patience anchored in awareness. Accountability is not a spectacle. It does not deliver satisfaction overnight. It works quietly through files, procedures, and decisions that rarely make headlines. I understand the temptation to take sides, to personalize events, to turn everything into heroes and villains. That approach is emotionally satisfying, but it weakens judgment. A serious society does not rush to conclusions. It watches carefully and demands consistency. This is not a call for silence from the people, it is a call for maturity. Question institutions, yes. Demand transparency, yes. But do not allow rumor to replace fact or emotion to replace reason. That exchange has never served us well. We are learning a new discipline as a nation, to let processes unfold, to resist manipulation, to recognize when calm is strength, not weakness. These habits take time to develop, but once they take root, they protect us from cycles we know too well. The people of Burkina Faso have endured too much to be distracted now. This moment should sharpen our focus, not divide it. Accountability is not the enemy of stability, it is its foundation. Moments like this often create uncertainty, because people expect immediate transformation. They look for sudden shifts, dramatic announcements, or visible rupture. That expectation itself is part of the old habit we are trying to leave behind. What comes next is not disruption. What comes next is continuity. Burkina Faso will not pause its priorities because of one legal process. Security operations will continue. Reforms will continue. Daily governance will continue. The work of restoring order, dignity, and self-reliance does not stop when attention shifts to a single case. At the same time, some things will not change. The law will not bend to protect status. Institutions will not be bypassed for convenience. Decisions will not be made to satisfy impatience or external commentary. That consistency is intentional. I want people to understand this clearly. Stability is not the absence of action. It is the presence of structure. When systems function as they should, individual events no longer threaten the whole. That is the difference between fragile states and serious ones. There will be attempts to provoke reaction, to force statements, to create confrontation where none is necessary. We will not participate in that cycle. Our response will remain measured, lawful, and focused on outcomes that matter to the people. History often exaggerates moments. Governance corrects them. What defines a nation is not how loudly it reacts, but how steadily it advances. This is the path we are on now. It is not dramatic, it is disciplined, and that discipline is precisely what makes it durable. I want to close this part by explaining the standard we are setting, not just for today, but for those who will come after us. Burkina Faso cannot afford leadership that improvises responsibility. We have tried that path. It produced uncertainty, cycles, and disappointment. What we are building now is quieter, but it is stronger. A state where authority is exercised within limits and where limits are respected, even when they are inconvenient. This standard applies to everyone, to those who served before, to those serving now, and to those who believe leadership is something to be taken rather than earned. Power is not validated by force alone, it is validated by conduct under pressure. I am fully aware that some hoped this moment would expose weakness. Instead, it has revealed intention. We are not governing through emotion, we are governing through structure. That choice will never satisfy those who profit from instability, but it will protect those who suffer from it. There is nothing extraordinary about what we are doing. In fact, that is the point. Accountability should not feel exceptional. It should feel normal. When it becomes normal, nations stop being held hostage by individuals and start being guided by principles. This is the discipline we are committing to, not for applause, not for headlines, but because a serious future demands serious habits. Burkina Faso is learning those habits now. When the noise fades, what remains is not fear and not satisfaction, it is clarity. This moment will be remembered by some as an arrest, by others as a test, and by many as a turning point. But for Burkina Faso, it should be understood as something deeper. It is a sign that we are learning to govern ourselves without shortcuts. A nation matures when it stops confusing restraint with weakness and accountability with hostility. Maturity is choosing process over impulse, structure over spectacle, and responsibility over comfort. These choices are not dramatic, they are demanding, and that is why they matter. I do not expect everyone to agree with every decision. Agreement is not the foundation of stability. Trust is. Trust grows when people see consistency, when they see that rules are not adjusted based on names, uniforms, or past positions. Trust grows when authority proves it can limit itself. What we are building will not be completed in one moment or defined by one case. It will be shaped by repetition, by doing the right thing again and again, even when it is difficult, even when it is misunderstood. Burkina Faso has endured too much to return to habits that failed us. We are choosing a different rhythm now, a slower one, a firmer one that favors endurance over applause. This is not the end of a story, it is the beginning of a standard. And standards, once established, are very hard to reverse.